I'm back! And in today's video we're going to be making this square and a square block. So Behind the Blocks is back and I'm so happy to be doing this series again. I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, life and the pandemic got in the way last year when I was starting to produce this series, but I'm happy to report that we are back. So I've made some changes to how this is going to work. Instead of just making random blocks, what we're actually doing is we're making a sampler quilt. In each video, we'll be making a block, and each block is based on squares and rectangles, and this is helping us to build and develop our skills as quilters. All the blocks are going to be 12.5 inches unfinished, and then they will be 12 inches finished once we've sewn them into the quilt. And if you've missed the first two videos in this series, which is the 4 patch and the 9 patch, I will put a link to the playlist in the corner there so that you can catch up with them. You can get all the information, the fabric that you need and the cutting instructions from my website, and I'll put a link in the description below so you can download that free worksheet. And also in the introductory worksheet you will find a link to Prequilt, which has a colouring page for the entire sample quilt that we're making, and you can colour this and play with it to pick your fabric choices. There's also a worksheet for every block, and in that it has step-by-step instructions on how to make the quilt, including the fabric requirements that you need for that particular block. There's a colouring page that you can use, and there are some instructions to make the blocks in different sizes. And make sure you stick around to the end of this video because I'm going to be showing you some example quilts that you can make using this block. So this is block number 3 and it's called the square and the square, or some people have referred to it as a framed square. So let's get started with the construction. To make this block, you're going to need 2 3.5 inch by 6.5 inch strips in fabric B, 2 3.5 inch by 12.5 inch strips in fabric B, and 1 6.5 inch square for the center of the block in fabric C. So to make this block, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our 6.5 inch center square, and we're going to take one of the 3.5 inch by 6.5 strip, and we're going to place it right sides together with the center square. And then we're going to take the other strip and we're going to place it on the left hand side of the square, right sides together. At the sewing machine, you can see I have a foot with a guide. This is a 1/4 inch quilting foot, and it has a little guide on the side to help me keep that 1/4 inch accurate. You'll see me using a little piece of fabric before I start sewing. This is known as a leader, and what this does is it helps to make sure that the machine is not balling up the fabric on the back and that the tension is correct before you start sewing into the main block. Take the center square and the right hand side blue strip and we join them together using the 1/4 inch seam, and then we cut our threads and then trim the leader off at the end. Sew that leader again, take the next blue strip and we're going to attach it to the other side of the square. Make sure your edges are all nicely aligned, butt it up against the leader and sew on through. Now we head to the ironing board. What we want to do is set the seams first by placing the iron on top of them, and this will just help the seam to relax. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just roll back that first piece of fabric, and what this does is it pushes the seam towards the blue fabric. Gently press along it with your fingers, being careful not to stretch the fabric, and then place the iron on it to press that, and then just flip it round and repeat for the other side. Roll the fabric back, press with your fingers, and then set it with the iron. And I am using a dry iron on a wool mat here. Now we're going to take a 3.5 inch by 12.5 inch blue strip, and we're going to place it right sides together along the long edge of this new block that we've just made, and we're going to sew that with a careful 1/4 inch. Use your leader again to make sure there's no issues with the sewing machine tension. As you sew down this long strip, you may find that it shifts slightly. You can pin this if you want, just add pins along and make sure that you don't sew over them. Or you can do like I'm doing, and I just sew a little bit and then I stop to check and I just adjust it as required, making sure that the edges are aligned. And then once you're finished, you're just going to cut your threads, cut the leader off, and then repeat for the other side. Then we go back to our pressing station, and again we want to set the seams on this. Just gently press your iron along the seam like we did in the first step. We're just going to roll that strip back, pushing the seam towards the blue fabric, being careful not to stretch the fabric. And then we're going to take our iron and we're just going to run it along to set that, and then you're going to flip it round and you're going to repeat for the second strip. So as you can see here, all the seams go away from the center square and they're all set nice and flat, and what that does is it gives you a nice even block. You can, if you like, press the seams into the center square. It's entirely your preference, but I prefer to press them away from the center of the square. That's how you make one square and a square block. It's dead simple, it's dead easy, and you can probably throw it together in less than 5 minutes. When it comes to making a lot of these blocks, there are a couple of things that we can do to make it as quick and efficient as possible. So say I wanted to make 20 of these blocks. What I would do is I would do the first step 20 times on all the blocks, and then I would go and do all the pressing for that step, and then I would go back and do the next step and then do all the pressing, and continue that for each step, doing it the number of times for the number of blocks that I'm making until I finished it. And by doing it like this, what you find is that you get into a bit of a routine and things start to become easier and quicker because your brain is in the frame of mind of I'm doing all the pressing just now, I'm doing all the sewing just now, I'm doing all the cutting just now. So that can be a really quick and efficient way to make lots of these blocks fast. Now let's take a look at some example quilts that are made using this block, and I've got 3 examples that I'm going to show you. So this first example is a 2-tone quilt. I have the 2 colours that I've used to make this block, the blue and the green, and then I've added a background colour. I've also used sashing to separate the blocks, which gives great symmetry. My OCD loves the symmetry in this. This is really effective. You can make this really quickly. You can even take this and reverse the background to a dark background with lighter fabrics in the squares to get a really nice modern effect. The second example is a multicolored version of this quilt. Now I've taken one of my Colourblind quilt palettes, and I'll leave a link in the description below to that so you can get it for free. And what I've done is I've made the blocks in a couple of different colors here, and then what you'll notice is that the colors run diagonally across the quilt to create some movement. I've also added cornerstones of the same color as the block that they're next to, and what this does is it creates a little bit of a waterfall effect across the quilt, and I really like the movement this creates in the quilt. And what I think would be really cool with this is if you were to do some curved lines that flow through the colors. I think that would look really smart. Now this third example is my favorite one. I really like how this looks. I've stripped this down to just a single color and the background, but what I have done is created 2 blocks. So the A block has a white center and then a green frame, and the B block has a green center with a white frame. And when you put these 2 together, what happens is that it looks like the squares are floating. There's no sashing in this quilt, but if you were to add white sashing or the same color as your background between the blocks, it would create a bigger illusion of the blocks floating. I've also added a white border on the outside of this, and what that does is it allows the A blocks that are on the outside of the quilt to float as well. I really like this. I think it's a lot of fun. I think you could do lots of things with this. If you did a dark background with light colors, I think that would look amazing. Other things you could do this is you could do monochromatic color schemes and have them running in waves. You could do rainbow color schemes. There's just endless options for this quilt block. So there you have it. That's how to make the square in a square block. And those were some example quilts showing you what's possible with this quilt block. Don't forget, there are 2 free worksheets in the description below. There is a worksheet that has all the step-by-step instructions for how to make this block, and then information about how to make the block in different sizes. And then there is a worksheet that has all the fabric requirements, all the cutting instructions, coloring pages, and everything that you'll need to make this sampler quilt. Full instructions and everything that you need are in the links in the description below. And please share your progress on Instagram. Post your blocks using the hashtag BTBSeason1 and tag me, the Colourblind Quilter, so that I can see your blocks and follow your progress. In the next video, we're going to be making block number 4 in our quilt, which is the rail fence block. I have some ways to make this really quick and really fast that you're going to love. I'm going to be showing you some strip piecing, and I'm going to be showing you some tips for nesting your seams. If you like this video, do give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel so you'll get notified when the next videos in this season come out. And until next time, take care.